session. We will begin with the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first order of business is public comments. Just a reminder, comments or requests should be brief and to the point as possible and shall not exceed 3 minutes and must not mention specific names of students or personnel. Public comments will be aired live, but the board typically will not respond to individual comments. And we have one card this evening, Mr. Gibson.
Good evening. I'm Wesley Gibson, talking about the situation at Waccamaw. I've been here from the beginning, and I'm going to see it to the end. My grandmother used to tell me, where there's smoke, there's fire. Honesty, integrity, and accountability is something that every student, every teacher, every administrator should possess in this school district and in America and in life. You have a principal that lied to the 9 of y'all, lied to the press, wrote a fabricated incident report. That's just like writing a false police report. This principal refuses to take accountability for his actions. I feel the residents of Georgetown, and as a taxpayer, we deserve a full police investigation of what happened at Waccamaw High. Not bits and pieces, not partial reports, but a full report done by the police so there is total transparency of what happened. I don't blame the children. I was a teenager one time. We did pranks. We didn't go to that extreme. But it's not on the children. It's on the administrator because it happened under his watch. And if the grievance is for him, there's a few questions I want to put in your mind to ask yourself. Did he exchange emails with the coach who admitted letting the children in? And if he didn't, then who was she responding to? Why didn't the school district authenticate where the emails originated and where they were sent? You could do that easily. Why did the coach let the students in? How did she let them in without knowing that the alarm system was disarmed? Incident report 892391 states a child told their parents they saw the same videos I saw that I told you about the first time I came, but everybody dispelled them about drinking in a restroom. No, you can't find evidence of it because they drank in the restroom and videoed themselves. In closing, honesty, integrity, and accountability is what we need. The principal is going to Georgetown High, the largest school in the county. I hear the principal saying in the news about his impeccable work for 19 years, but again, this man lied to you. But then parents of Georgetown High don't trust this man.
Okay, the next thing on our agenda is the approval of the minutes. You have received the minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
It's been moved. It's been seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion, the minutes have been approved. The next thing on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion that we approve the agenda that's been put in front of us?
So moved.
Been moved and it's been second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Now we have an agenda. The first thing we have two information items, starting with Ms. Lisa Ackerman, amendment to the MBCon construction for miscellaneous capital projects.
Good evening, Chairman Gaskins, members of the board, Mr. Price. The item that we bring to you for information this evening is another GMP amendment to the existing MBCon contract. We are asking them for their assistance in executing several projects. A couple of the projects deal with the magnet school and will be funded through the magnet school. Those are the two dance floors at Browns Ferry and Carvers Bay High. There's also a dance floor at Georgetown Middle School funded out of capital. You see a couple LED light upgrades there and some additional steps on the roofs where we have existing wood steps on the roof. We made a concerted effort several years ago to start replacing those with steel, a steel construction step on the roof to enhance safety for our maintenance folks. I say all that to say it's about $500,000 worth of projects, some of them coming out of the capital 8% money, some of them coming out of magnet school money. We are not paying an additional fee to MBCon for them to manage those projects for us. We will pay liability insurance and bonding, but we will not pay them additional fee. It'll be a part of their existing contract, and they will be with us through November. And again, it's just an information item this evening.
Are there any questions for Ms. Ackerman? Hearing none, we'll move to the next thing on the agenda is Dr. Giles, policy IHA, grading and assessment systems.
Good afternoon. While the proposal is being uploaded, I will share first Chairman Gaskins, members of the board, Superintendent Price, and our Georgetown County School District family. Thank you for allowing us to be here just briefly. Members of my team, some of them are at our open houses tonight, so that's why they're not present for this proposal. On behalf of the team, I do share with you an assessment proposal that is birthed out of feedback and input that we received throughout the year, as well as our review of assessments that we received that included the amount of assessments our students were participating in within the course of a year. So while it's being brought up, I'll go ahead and begin discussing it. 3 key points we wanted to hone in on were the purpose of our assessments, the frequency, meaning how often we gave these assessments, as well as the quality of these assessments. Again, as I stated, the feedback we received throughout the year from teachers as well as administrators that we were over-assessing students. So we began looking at it as a team, and out of that, 2 questions we focused on. The first question was, is an assessment of instruction, is it an assessment for instruction? As we look at of instruction, it's more on the back end. It tells us what did a student learn during the course of the lessons, whereas assessment for instruction drives the decisions that the teachers are making, and it helps us to better prepare our students for other assessments or end-of-year type things. If we dive into the copy of the assessment review, I will show you very quickly. This is the review that we actually participated in as a team. This is the elementary part. Notice in the N category, we didn't really have a lot of wiggle room. If you notice, most of the assessments that our students are participating in are mandatory, and that comes from our State Department. For example, iReady. iReady is part of the proviso where we have to assess our students in grades 1 through 8. So that assessment is mandatory, and it is 3 times a year, beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year. Scroll down. And again, SC Ready, end of year tests, end of course assessments, they're all mandatory. The only ones that we found were optional were exams, midterm exams, final exams, as well as our SEL screener in the elementary schools. Taking that feedback and considering what we were allowed or had the flexibility in, we began to look at a proposal. So moving forward to the next slide. That proposal would be to replace or either eliminate midterm assessments and finals in middle schools, which would be a policy update. Secondly, give benchmark testing approximately 75% through the course. Again, that focuses on that 4 instruction versus taking it 3 times a semester or 3 times within a course. And again, it informs instruction. So our policy change that we would like to reflect upon would be in grades 6 through 8, eliminating those semester and final exams. And it's important to note we did have the input and feedback from teachers as well as administrators. This wasn't a district administrative decision solely, but we had feedback and input. So we would strike through semester and final examinations will be a component of each course offered in grades 6 through 8 with the exception of exploratory courses. The first semester exam will count as 10% of the first semester average, and the second semester exam will count as 10% of the second semester average. So we're proposing to eliminate that, and each 9 weeks grading will count as 25% of the final grade for that course. Courses taken in grades 6 through 8, which have a Carnegie unit, for example, Algebra 1, English 1, those courses would still have to have their exams. But our other courses is the proposal to remove those and have equal weighting for the 4 quarters. So in summary, our proposal for the entire assessments would be SEL screeners. We want to move those from being mandatory to optional. And the State Department has made those optional, so it is our proposal that SEL screeners, we will do away with those at the elementary level. Middle school benchmarks, again, for core courses only. Instead of being assessed 3 times a year, we would move to the 1 time a year. High school benchmarks, again, we benchmark only in our end of course courses, so it would be 1 time a year. And the requirement, this is the biggest piece, the requirement for midterm and final exams in middle schools would be eliminated, thus moving towards a change or an adjustment in our policy.
So is there no change, to the high school benchmarks? Is that what you said?
At this time, we asked our high school principals for their input, and they were not in favor at this time because of the rigor and the expectations at the high school level. But they would like to see what happens in the middle school levels. And one thing I will share is that our middle schools, at one point, a student could have taken up to 10 or 12 assessments in January within a 2-week period. And that was one of our focus points to help with those students.
I would like to thank your staff for taking a look at this, because it's a real eye-opener to see how many tests that are mandatory by the state. And you start subtracting time from instruction from there.
And
We
the quality
appreciate
and
the
value
work
of
that
it.
you're
Yeah,
doing.
I do have a comment or concern, I guess. My concern is and I know they'll be taking other tests in the middle school, but if they don't take an exam, then they get to high school and they're taking exams. It just seems to not prepare them as well.
So one thing we did.
So, I mean, I'm sure you might have talked about that.
Yeah, we did discuss, and teachers do have the option to give that exam at the middle school level, but it won't be weighted as a 10% part of their grade.
I mean, at least they can see the importance of it and that sort of thing, because because there was a time that we didn't have middle, maybe when you were in school, that we didn't have middle school exams, and then when they got to high school, it kind of blew their mind. Well, I don't need to worry about that. So that's my concern, because when they get to high school, I don't want them, freaking out or messing up that exam when they've done, pretty well over the year, so, okay.
That was the suggestion, that it would be optional, to give an exam. However, it won't be weighted as a 10%. It
And of
could
course,
be
the
a major
EOC courses,
assessment.
they would have to have those, so that's...
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
I do have one other question about the benchmark, 75% through the course, which I think that's great. Does the benchmark count toward the grade?
No, that's one thing that we did learn from this school year, that a benchmark should not be counted as a grade. It is to inform instruction, and it's to help us improve our instruction and to know where our students are.
Yeah.
But not to assess what instruction they have had.
And who generates, is this y'all bias questions?
Our coaches at the district level, they help to drive how that benchmark is made based on the standards and the pacing guides.
Okay.
But it's a company that we use that writes the actual tests.
You mentioned pacing guides. Do we have pacing guides for all of our courses for each
Yes, we do.
semester?
We did. There was a concerted effort this year to improve our pacing guides. Our coaches rolled those out the past 3 days during our professional development, and we've had positive feedback so far.
Right. Do we have a lot of kids, what percentage of kids move from one school to another throughout the year? Is that a big number?
I wouldn't be able to give you the
Okay,
exact percentage.
but I
I'd be
don't-
guessing, but I will say that there are students that transfer for various reasons.
Right, okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I do have a question. I'm just curious, if we eliminate the final exams in middle school, what determines the proficiency of the student at that level? What's in place of the final exam that says that person is qualified?
Each quarter now counts as 25%. So that 25% times 4 equates to the F1, the final grade of 100%.
Is that based on the iReady?
No, sir, that's all based on the standards that are be taught. iReady only counts in grades 3, and that determines passing based on the state proviso. And students are given an, are given an opportunity to attend summer school when that happens.
And, I mean, just interject here, Scott, and those teachers would have some type of assessment throughout the quarters. You know, they're choosing or, you know, based on their curriculum. So, I mean, they would still be tested, and the teachers would say, okay, this child is proficient in this, or we need more work on this, and that, they would do things that way, too,
And they would choose
And it-
the assessment, the teacher would?
based on what they were teaching, yes.
Like,
And
I
based
could
on their
give
pacing
you-
guides and...
If I were an English teacher, you may give essays or written compositions that count as a certain percentage or weighting for a quarter. Major assessment may be a multiple choice exam, whereas your classwork may be another percentage. And within all of that, that assesses the student's work that they've done within that quarter and determines their level of proficiency.
Would we have different teachers giving different assessments?
We're working towards, that's our next thing, common assessments. But right now, our teachers plan together, so we're striving to have common assessments.
Yeah,
But that's not consistent. I would not be completely transparent if I said all of our assessments were common assessments at this point.
Yeah, that sort of answers the next question I was going to ask about our teachers, are the coaches and the administrators working with teachers to look at the assessments that they're giving to make sure the assessments they use are quality?
That's the next piece the next part of that we're working on within our professional learning communities. We're unpacking the standards, we're planning together, and now that next piece is ensuring that we're using common assessments to do comparative data.
Perfect, thank you. Are there any other questions?
I just think common assessments, where you're going, is an absolute must.
Absolutely.
And I applaud you for going that direction, because we definitely need that in order to be sure the rigor of the assessment items meet the rigor of the standards. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hearing no other questions, we're going to move on to our action items. And our first action item is our personnel list, which you have all received. The administration recommends approval of the personnel list as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been second. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. The next thing is Ms. Lindsay Ann Thompson and Mr. Doug Jenkins, Policy GCC, Employee Leave and Absences. The administration recommends second and final reading approval of Policy GCC, Employee Leave and Absences as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been a second. Now, are there questions for Ms. Thompson? We were presented this at our last board meeting. Hearing none, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. The next policy is Policy ARGCC, Employee Leave and Absences. And this is an administrative rule to the following policy that we just passed. The administration recommends the first and final reading approval of Policy ARGCC, Employee Leave and Absences as presented. Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved. It's been seconded. Now, are there any questions for Ms. Thompson? You can get off easy. Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. The next thing is Policy Exhibit GCBC-E, Extra Duty. The administration recommends the removal of Policy Exhibit GCBC-E, Extra Duty, as presented. Is there a motion to move forward?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been seconded. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried.
Wonderful. Thank you all.
Okay. The next thing here is the athletic capital project addition, the athletic entrance at Carvers Bay High School, which we discussed at our previous board meeting. The administration presents the athletic entrance at Carvers Bay High School for action. Mr. Price, do you want to expand on that?
Yes, sir. At the last meeting, we gave an overview of the athletic entrance at Carvers Bay High compared to athletic entrances at our other 3 schools. This was a topic of interest before, so that was shared. And there are 3 options to consider for taking action on this. One would be to remove items in the 5-year operations plan and replace them with this project to accommodate the cost. Option 2 would be to approve a one-time transfer from the reserve fund into capital projects to cover the cost of this project. And then number 3, of course, would be to take no action on this project.
There are 3 possibilities here. Is there a motion on this? I know we had a lot of discussion at our last board meeting about this.
I like number 2.
Go ahead.
I make
You-
a motion that we go with option number 2.
Option number 2, to approve one-time transfer from our reserve funds. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, there's been a second to that. Are there any questions for Mr. Price? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. Just one quick question about it that just hit my mind on this. Before, we're approving the transfer of the money, but not the actual building of it at this point.
Correct. It would
Now
be the
come back
transfer
with-
to begin that process.
Yes, just want to clarify, that'll be the same with item number 6, athletic capital project addition, athletic softball field house at Waccamaw High School. So we still have the 3 options.
That's correct.
I move that we accept the option of transfer of money from our fund to be able to cover this project.
Okay, we have a motion to approve one-time transfer from our reserve fund to fund this. Is there a second? Since we have a second, are there any questions? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. The final thing, back to Lindsay Ann, social media class action lawsuit. the administration presents to the board for their vote to join, reject, or delay the decision to participate in the social media class action lawsuit. So first, we're going to turn it over to Lindsay.
Sure. Good evening, Chairman Gaskins, members of the board, Mr. Price. As you all recall at our last meeting, Mr. Duff was here along with Mr. Cutler from, he was on Zoom for us, and they went through the kind of the rationale behind this social media litigation. They compared it to our participation in the Juul litigation, which has concluded for us mostly, and we'll be seeing our proceeds from that probably in October. And so we did participate as plaintiffs in a large class action suit for that, and this would be a similar process where we would be participating in a large class action across the country, being represented by some of those kind of heavy-hitting big class action firms. The firm that I think, and I trust Mr. Duff's assessment here. He's done a lot of research, and he feels very confident with the Wagstaff and Cartmel, and so I certainly trust that as well. We've been approached by a couple of other firms to participate in social media litigation, but essentially the question is whether you want to become plaintiffs in another class action suit, whether you want to not do that at all, or whether you want to delay your decision until this litigation has had a little bit more time to develop. When we joined the Juul litigation, it was farther along. There had already been school districts, many more school districts across the country and across the state who had kind of gotten on board with that Juul litigation. We're at an earlier phase here in the social media piece. So you certainly, however you all want to play it, it doesn't, if you join now, if you join later, it doesn't affect your recovery one way or the other. It's just a matter of timing, but it won't affect the financial recovery that we receive. Or you can not join at all if you feel that that being a plaintiff against these social media companies isn't where you want the district to go. That's your decision. I'm happy to try to field any questions on that as well.
I have a question. Just to reiterate what they shared last time about what we want to get out of this. What do we hope to, what do we hope to get out of it from the social media? We want them to stop doing what?
Right, and so
can we do that?
That's a good question. So, obviously they are under various directives from the federal government, from different state governments, that sort of thing, to sort of cease and desist some of those things that they've been doing in terms of that targeting advertising, the algorithms that they're creating that are keeping students on or children on with that kind of doom scrolling where they just can't get off because everything they see has been created through an algorithm to be very interesting to that particular child. We've talked about whether they would be mandated to do certain things like mandatory time cutoffs, that sort of thing. So that, and doing a little bit better with making sure that they're complying with federal laws related to children's internet activity. But with all of that said, the only thing that the district could recover is money. They can be required to do these other things. They can be required to clamp down on their algorithms or their targeting advertising, whatever it is. But what, and part of the litigation would be impacting them to do those things. But what we would see would be the punitive damages, which are the financial damages, saying, you did this, you did wrong, and as punishment for that, you have to pay the folks who educate your children, the school districts. So we would hope that it would result in some of those better steps, those better behaviors, better outcomes. But the end result that the district would see would be the financial remuneration that we would use to try to address students' mental health, try to improve their behavior in terms of interacting online and that sort of thing that we would use in our resources and methods here.
That was my next question, that the funds that we would recover could be used to address those mental health issues that are, I don't know if you could say as a result of it, but that are, partly to come from the use of social media.
Yes, ma'am. So at this point, the punitive damages, where those would have to be spent, I don't think has been defined yet. Whereas in the Jewel case, they were very clear by the time we joined that here, you're only going to be able to do X, Y, and Z with any recovery that you receive. We're a little bit earlier in this phase, so they haven't quite hammered out those details yet of here's what you'll be able to do with the money, here's what you won't be able to do with the money. But I would anticipate that the mental health benefit, the mental health aspect would be a major target of what the funds would be supposed to be used for. I think that's the biggest concern.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I have a ton. I was hoping the lawyers would be here, not that you're a good stand-in,
No, absolutely not. And I can get Mr. Duff on the phone in moments. He is on standby.
but I'd love to get some answers. For instance, I ran some numbers. So the Jewel, going back to the Jewel lawsuit, I'm
Yes,
just
sir.
assuming, let's say this mimics the Jewel lawsuit. The settlement was $1.7 billion. So just to put it in context, $1 billion is $1,000 million. Plus 700 other million dollars was the settlement.
Right?
So as I read the printout, of that money, $355 million went to 350 different school districts across the nation, which leaves $1,000 million and plus $345 million left. I'd like to know where that money went. I suspect it all went to the law firm.
I would assume that large portions of that money did go to those firms, yes. I would also assume that there were major costs involved in that type of litigation that are not pocketed by an attorney, but that go to the court system. So in terms of, taking depositions, so I'm assuming thousands upon thousands of depositions were taken. Every one of those costs money and manpower to do. So I don't know, I don't have a breakdown of exactly where the lawyer fees went as opposed to the litigation costs.
It's a lot of money. I'd love to see the breakdown. The other question I had was, did the school districts reach out to this law firm to file a class action suit, or did the law firm recruit the school districts?
For Jewel or for social media?
For Jewel.
For Jewel. I believe that in the initial stages of the Jewel suit, years ago, that it was school districts and communities, because there were also recoveries that went to, there were separate lawsuits, but that also went to towns, cities as entities. Some went to school districts, some went to hospitals, that sort of thing. There were different suits, but they were all sort of related in that way. And in the beginning, I believe it was communities, whether it was through their town council, their school board, their hospital councils, that were seeking out what can we do to fix the problem with vaping and looking for those answers. So I assume that in the beginning, and I know that in the beginning, those were entities looking towards law firms for help. But it doesn't take long for law firms to say, well, there's a whole bunch of you all out here that look just alike, and once we've done the work on one, it makes it easy to do the work for the rest. So while it was public entities pursuing private firms first, it became the reverse.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
So I'd love to see that breakdown before we make any kind of a decision. But I understand also that we participated in the Jewel class action suit, and we got, what, $150,000 or something as a result?
$157,000, yes, sir.
So I'm trying to put that in perspective. So we have $1,000 million plus $345 additional million unaccounted for. We don't know where that went. But we got the equivalent in Georgetown County of basically 2 senior teachers plus benefits salary for a year. Doesn't seem like a lot, given how much money was at stake at this thing. And the other thing I asked the lawyers the last time was, what has Jewel changed as a result of the lawsuit other than losing a lot of money? And the answer I heard was not much.
Well, Jewel is barely hanging on by a thread as a business. I mean, they're essentially bankrupted. And then before, and I'm not in any position to defend Jewel. I'm glad we were a part of the litigation that sued them. I think they were definitely doing wrong. But I can say that as part of federal regulations that have evolved since those lawsuits were brought, they had to do things like stop manufacturing bubble gum flavored vapes, because the only person that wants a bubblegum flavored vape is somebody under 18, pretty much. Right. So they did, by federal regulation, have to change their ways, and have now almost gone defunct, if not completely. So, you know, I'm certainly not defending those companies in any way.
I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just saying this seems to me like 75% of that settlement went somewhere, but not to the schools. And enough said.
Understood.
Mr. Walker, do you have a question?
I'm good.
Are there any other questions? Is there any action that we need to take this evening? Hearing no action, we will come back to this or rediscuss this when we get further along.
Okay, so then you would like to bring it up at a later date again, or completely throw it off the table?
Yes.
I just would move that we delay our decision.
Table the decision.
And we had 3 options, and I would say one of them would be to delay.
Do we do that in a form of a motion?
I would, just to have it solidified here this evening.
Okay,
And I think Ms. Hamill's motion essentially summed it up.
All right, so we have a motion from Ms. Hamill. Is there a second to that?
So moved.
It's been seconded and moved. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor of delaying this decision to participate in the social media class action lawsuit? All, if you're in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The motion is carried. It will be delayed.
Understood. Wonderful. Thank you.
The next thing on our agenda is board superintendent comments or requests.
Tell you in a minute.
Ms. Hamel?
I would just like to say that we're so excited that our teachers are back
Yes.
and that our students are coming back this week. And we can't wait to have everybody fill in our spaces and life to begin again. You know, in the summer, it's so dull and everything's kind of down, even though we have lots of programs that kind of spark us up. But I would like to say thank you to our teachers who've prepared, a lot of them on their own time. A lot of them have come in all summer and been ready to start. And things, I just think life is beginning. So thank you. Thank you to our staff. Thank you to our bus drivers and everybody who've geared up. You know, we don't have long until the wheels roll, so thank you so much. And cafeterias will start bustling and we'll be alive.
Yes.
Thank you.
I second that. To me, you know, former teacher, it was an exciting time getting ready for school to start, planning all summer, then seeing the kids come in, and it's an exciting time. And I hope as our board members will get out and visit the schools, as many as you can over the next first 5 days school is in session. Let's be seen. Thank you very much. Is anybody else? Mr. Price.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen of the board, just to echo some of the comments that have already been mentioned, the last few weeks have been busy with efforts to kick off the 23-24 school year successfully. Employees have been busy mowing lawns, cleaning buildings, making repairs, attending orientation and training sessions, preparing classrooms, finalizing rosters, writing lesson plans, driving routes, prepping meals, and on and on and on. Our summer's worth of work kicks off in 2 days as we prepare to celebrate the first day of the new school year. And I invite all board members to visit schools and celebrate with us as we work to prepare all of our students for success in their chosen pathway. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. The next thing on our agenda, we have an executive session for the purpose of board grievance hearing of a certified administrator. Is there a motion that we go into executive session?
So moved.
It's been moved.
Second.
It's been second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We are now in executive session.
27, Kathy.
Is there a motion that we come out of the executive session?
Friday and Saturday?
So moved.
So moved. Second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. The motion is carried. Is there action that we need to take this evening?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the grievance of the certified administrator, I move that we affirm the decision of the superintendent in part and deny in part. I further move that we direct council to memorialize an agreement that reflects additional pay for additional days of work while the administrator remains in the administrator's current position.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Are there any discussion? Hearing none, I call for the question. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Nay, I'm sorry.
I didn't mean that.
All right.
Majority rules.
Okay. All right, the motion is carried. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.
She just repeated.